at the end of the day, I'd rather play video games than to, drink too much or party or do any of those things.
Hello humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. It's Sega Saturday, baby. It's the time when we look back at the best of the retro games from Sega. We will go down memory video game lane, and I'll talk to you about my experiences when these games came out and what I think about them today, what my thoughts are about these games right now. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's take a look back at the wonderful world of Sega.
Hello humans, and welcome to another episode of Sega Saturday. Today, we're going down memory lane with Sega Genesis. Guys, the Genesis, wow, what can I say? Back in the day, I remember buying the Genesis, and I got a bundle that included Altered Beast and Sonic, right? And at that time they were doing a promotion. It was like $130 I paid, and yes, it included Sonic as a separate cart, however they did that, and it had Altered Beast as a packing game. I think this is when they were switching over to making Sonic the mascot, and there was a lot of hype around it, and this is way too much money for the time. But you have to remember, I'm a brand new father at this point. I'm a new dad, and this is my only form of entertainment. In my household, they would watch movies. I was trying not to, I was just never that huge of a drinker on the daily. Like I would have a couple, but at the end of the day, I'd rather play video games than to, drink too much or party or do any of those things. And even back in the day, guys, when I was married, just specifically because I was married and people knew that I played video games, they were like, oh, what? That's just the way my generation is, man. To this day, they're still the same. When people that are not gamers from my generation know that you still play games, they still give you that look like, what are you doing? And that's just that's just the way it is. It's not like today, right? But man, this little machine here, I'm telling you, what can I remember about it? How can I honor the times that I had with it? I had really, really terrible jobs back in the day, working with terrible people, and I just had to make the best of it. At the time, I didn't know that these were terrible people. I was so young that I didn't know any better. I thought that's the way work was, and through all the facets where I've been working, I encountered the same kind of people, when you don't have an education and you're just trying to do whatever you can to be, responsible and be a good father. You take whatever it's there, right? And I worked with some crazy people, and the way I would get away from those stresses is this. Now, here's when I say crazy people, okay, what am I talking about? There's crazy and there's crazy, right? Well, there was one gentleman, he thought he was a drummer, like actual drummer, like he was gonna make it, and he's delusional. At this point he was mid-30s and didn't really know how to play drums. He played the air drums really good. He did not own a set of drums. Yeah. He was working on it though. That was one crazy person. Another crazy person that I used to work with would take all his money, take all his paycheck, and go down to TJ every payday, every 2 weeks, and leave for the whole weekend and spend every last dime of his check except for the ride home. And he'd come back on Monday, telling us all these stories about all these, hookers and stuff, and all the booze he used to drink, and And what an amazing time he had. And then for about 2 weeks, he would be begging for food at work. Trying to tell people, hey, I'm going to pay you next week for gas, and, you know, taking rights from people. It was just crazy. And this guy was like my age right now. This was his lifestyle every 2 weeks. And what am I talking about crazy? I'm talking about a guy that, remember how I told you that I used to pick up bodies for work, right? I do what's called a first call, and you would pick up recently deceased people. And he was an assistant of sorts. He didn't get the share of the calls, and the reason is because this gentleman had an affinity for PCP. I'm not kidding. Yeah, so you could be working with him and all of a sudden he just flip out, like, and just run away. So one time, I'll give you an example. One time we're picking up, this is graphic. Remember I said this is for a mature audience, right? So when I'm talking shitty jobs and I'm talking crappy work, this is crappy work, right? So we had to pick up a body that had been sitting for a while. I'm talking like 30 days. I mean, it was spongy. And if you guys don't know anything about bodies, here's where it gets good, right? If you leave a body in the heat for a really long time and just been cooking, besides it stinking to high hell, the skin starts peeling off, right? So I said to him, because he was, even though he was a lot taller than me, he was skinny, he just wasn't as strong, you know, so I would always take the top part of the body, which is the heavier part. And I said, okay, help me lift it. So when he lifts, the skin, and we're wearing gloves, right? We're wearing rubber gloves. The skin peels off. And he screamed and he ran away. I don't know where he went. So, and this is the worst part, guys. There's no cell phones at this time, right? This is so long ago. There's no cell phones. There's just beepers. And I'm nowhere near a cell phone. I'm in a county morgue in the fridge area. Yeah, so those kind of people. What other interesting folks that I work with? I worked with stripper addicted boss. He loved going to the strip joint. That was his deal, except he didn't want anybody to know. And he was like that character in that, you know, and I never saw the movie. I just saw the character Burt Reynolds, you know, where he's like wearing Vaseline and stuff in that movie, Stripper or something like that, with Demi Moore. He was that kind of weirdo, you know. He would like pay to give people showers and stuff like that, you know, that kind of wacko. And he would, you know, give everybody else a little sprinkle of something, so you would go with him, or take his friends out with him. And I've told this story before where I used some of that money that he would give us so I could buy a PlayStation. That's how I got my PlayStation. But anyway, yeah, wacky, weird guy like that, right? And those are what I needed my Genesis for. These are the kind of people that I work with that were just completely freaking nuts, right? How nuts? I used to work with a guy that got an inheritance. Okay, his aunt died, left him quite a bit of money. What this guy would do, this is nuts. What this guy would do, he would carry the money in a briefcase, in cash, so he can flex, so he can front, so he can show it off. I'm not kidding you. And this guy was a shoe salesman. This guy was a shoe salesman, and he had. You see, the lady she had a good personality, but his wife was just different looking. And he was a handsome guy, and he would flaunt around this money, so, you know, other women would chase him. So he was always philandering and stuff. And that was the whole purpose of him having all this money, plus he developed a really bad powdering his nose problem later on. And one time, and he liked smoking weed. Now you have to remember, this is before it was legal, right? So you couldn't smoke weed at work or anything like that. And then one time I walk in on him. He had left the bathroom door open. I knew he really needed to take a piss. I open the door and he's standing on a bucket with a small roach, and he's right next to the fart fan. Yeah. What other crazy stuff this guy do? He used to hide. This is a shoe store, okay? He used to hide his porno magazines in the boot boxes. So one time, one of the guys brings out this boot box, and he's got like a magazine that says pregnant women in bondage. This is before the internet, guys, so this is the only way this guy could. Oh man, it's funny now, it's funny now, but these people were horrible to work with. You could just imagine these nuts, right? And I was a young dad, and I had to put food on the table, and that's who I had to work with, man. A lot of crazy bastards, man, and this saved my frickin' sanity, man. And I remember buying it and playing Altered Beast, and I was like, man, this is just like the arcade, and I thought this was like the most awesomest thing ever. And it would just take me back, and I wouldn't think about the crazy situations I was in, and there were crazy situations. I remember one time, and this was just like horrible, right? This is the epitome of stuff that would happen to me. I'd moved to another state, and I had $100 left, which I was going to use for food for the first 30 days that I worked there, because it was going to take me a month to get a paycheck. And I lost $100 in a gas station, man. It was horrible. I think we had to make it with like $20 for the rest of the month. It was just nuts. And those are the sort of situations that, and how would I have a $130 system when I only had $100 for food? Well, I was young and irresponsible and immature, it's just one of those things, that was just reality. I'm a different person now, but that's how you learn. You learn by screwing up, and if you're really smart, you'll learn from other people's screw ups. But if you're not, you learn from your own. So yeah, man, the Genesis has been with me through some tough times, as well as these other consoles, right? But the Genesis reminds me of being young, of being stressed, needing that relief, and little things would make me happy, like watching Sonic tap his foot when you were waiting on the game, and this little machine gave me a lot of joy, man. And when my kids were little, they would watch me play, and sit around and pretend that they were, holding the other controller, stuff like that. So there was also a lot of good memories, with it around the house. I remember buying the most expensive game that I bought to that point, Streets of Rage 2, waiting for a Street Fighter, right, where everybody else had the Super Nintendo and had Street Fighter, and I didn't, and I couldn't have it because I had the Genesis. But yeah, the Genesis, when it came out, was such an amazing machine, man. It was faster than my NES. It was everything that you wanted in a video game console at the time. Now, I don't talk about all these things for woe is me or anything like that, guys, because, things in the end turned out great. I have a great family, good, kids that love me, grandkids, and it's awesome, right? But it's nice to remember where you came from, and the journey that you've been through. And some of you out there might be going through your journey now. Maybe your Genesis is the Xbox or the PlayStation right now, or maybe the Switch. I don't know. Everything happens in seasons, and nothing that happens to any human is usually a unique experience, with very few exceptions. But We all go through things. And I think that the reason we have these attachments to games because they've been part of our life in some way. We rely on them for not only for entertainment, but for stress relief, for dealing with other things that we have going on, you know. And I'm just like any other human. While I'm going through this, I'm trying to cope, you know, with all this craziness going around, right, around me. And a lot of the places that I worked in, the guys were doing drugs all the time, you know. And for me, it was more about the games, you know. I've always been that way. Not that I'm a saint, not that I've never tried drugs or anything like that. Trust me, I've tried plenty of drugs. But at the end of the day, right, at the end of the day, if you ever ask me, would you rather get drunk or would you rather have a PS4? You know, do you want strippers or do you want the full collection of Shin Megami Tensei? There's no choice. I'm always going to pick video games. Why? Because those other things are temporary and I just don't enjoy them as much, right? And there's more positive things in my life than those things, you know, specifically my family, which in the end I enjoyed these a lot with, you know, with my girls. They used to watch me play, and I remember getting Mortal Kombat and they were really scared. I was really scared when I got Mortal Kombat. I even bought the Sega CD for it, you know, so I spent a lot of time with the Genesis. The Genesis was part of my house, you know, just like people today say, you know, the TV or any other appliance that they rely on. That's how important the Genesis was in my household there for a few years. And that's why I will always cherish it, you know. It was with me through some of the toughest times that I've ever had, you know, as far as learning and gaining experience and dealing with people and bouncing around, you know, stuff like that. It was there for me. And, you know, that's why I like these mini consoles, you know, and why I'm collecting them. You know, usually I don't even play them because I already have the games. I'd rather play the games, but it's just like a memento, you know, putting these up, especially when my family sees them. It reminds them of those times, you know, that we were growing up and struggling, you know, but in a positive way we can look back, I hope, you know, and see the journey of where we came from and the hope of where we're going. And hopefully where we're going is somewhere awesome. And I'm sure it will be. All right, humans, I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Thank you for joining me on another Sega Saturday. I hope you like and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, man. What do you got to lose? You're just going to hear the old man talk. All right, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Gen X Gamer. Remember to like and subscribe, click the notification bell, and remember, never be afraid to be happy. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Hello humans and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Yes, today it's Sega Saturday, baby, and we're going to go down memory lane.